All right. So what's up, guys? Welcome back. Tino Regano from The Sophisticated Man, joined by Allison here by another special guest, a little interview. Allison, for the people that don't know you, why don't you quickly describe, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
So my name is Allison Mak, and I actually have my own YouTube channel too. I talk about something similar as what Tino does. We just talk about like self-development and dating, and right now I'm excited to join him today. He's going to interview me and ask me some questions, and we're just going to have a good conversation and share some thoughts with you guys and each other.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Thanks for joining in. So yeah, kind of the same setup that I had last time. We'll start with the central theme and more of like a discussion based thing. So I think a good question to start with is from a female perspective. What do you think that men are currently struggling with right now, in their life? Like from your perspective, what do you think that is?
I think that men are struggling with having role models around them and strong people around them, maybe other men or just good role models. I think that they sorry, I just have so many thoughts right now. I'm just like trying to put it all together. My God. And we just started this. So I just think that mainly they're struggling with role models.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I want to maybe expand on that a little bit too, as far as the role models, because I agree. I think that there's a lot of bad examples of what like a good man looks like and maybe what their behaviors entail. So like from your perspective too, like what have you seen in terms of like bad role models or bad advice out there? Like, do you have any like maybe examples of what that is?
Well, I actually think it's mainly society that tells men that that just tells them that they're not as strong as they really are. I think that like it doesn't encourage them to reach their full potential due to many different things. For example, the rise of feminism and the rise of different ideologies in our current society today. I think that's a big part of it, and that's a big reason why men are just not reaching their full like potential and capabilities in this day and age.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I would agree with that. I think that there's a lot of, I also I look at the distractions too. And me and David had talked about this on the previous podcast. It was like, there's so much like stimulus and so much distraction of like, hey, look over here. And then there's just like all this comfort and convenience that kind of comes with modern times, which is good in some cases, but in other cases, especially when we're talking about men like becoming their best version, like you said, like tap into their potential. I think without challenge in their life, it makes that whole process a hell of a lot harder. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think that as we were talking about last time, right? The weak times create hard men.
Right.
No, sorry. the chart.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And obviously with every up, there's a down. And so I think that with every society or generation, there's a kind of like a theme, like a different kind of the way that men were brought up. And so right now, I guess we're definitely in a phase where life is easy for men. And so they don't have to overcome challenge, and they don't really need to overcome these things in order to get to the other side of success or comfort. So yeah.
100%. And that's something I really try to tell guys on this channel is like to put in incremental pieces of challenge in your life, in your day to day, whatever that looks like. Yeah. Just like if it's taking a cold shower, or something simple like going, doing a cold plunge or doing something crazy like that. Like it's just small things to just introduce challenge into your life in a small little way. So I guess for you too, because I'm curious, like, what kind of things do you do to implement maybe challenge into your routine and in your schedule?
Well, I set my routine and schedule. I set it pretty like solid, and I have a pretty good routine going on every day. I make sure that there are things that I get done every single day on top of the work that I need to do. And I think that routine is very important for everyone in order incorporate challenge into their lives, because without a routine, every day can just kind of be like flippy floppy, and you can one day feel like doing something hard, one day not feel like doing something hard. But I feel like every day, if you have a set routine and you put those things in, and those are like a non-negotiable, whatever it is, for example, going to the gym or like meal prepping or whatever it is, just have them in your schedule and make it a routine. And I heard, what is it like? In order to create a habit for yourself, it takes a certain amount of days. What was the amount of days? Like 41 days?
It was like
over a month, I think.
90 some days, about 3 months.
That long?
Something like that.
So you do the same thing that many times in order to create make that into a habit. So that's why I always talk about routine and how important that is for everyone.
I totally agree. And I love where we're at right now, because we're talking about routines. We're talking about habits. That's something I think that isn't the sexiest thing to talk about on YouTube, but it's super freaking important.
Because it sounds so basic. It's like, why are we talking about like this? Like, I didn't come here for that. I want to talk about like something juicier, but this is,
I want to talk about how to get girls, bro.
Exactly. Like, I want to talk about how, like, what girls don't like about guys, like whatever, right? But like, nah, this will earn you success. This is so important. Routines are so sexy. That's a thing now.
Yeah, that's the new shirt. I'm making a shirt on it. It says habits are sexy.
Exactly. Do it.
But the funny thing about that is, of what you just said, like, oh, I want to know, like, guys typically right now are focused on, well, I just want to talk to more women, or just like have more success in my dating life. The funny thing is, when you as a man kind of have your own routines together, you have structure in your life, you have goals that you're pursuing, it makes the process of having a girl in your life that much easier. You know what I mean?
Because you're actually able to take care of her and like, know how to deal with yourself with another person.
Totally.
Rather than being crazy yourself and then trying to take on someone else. That's just going to be insane.
I love that. So this is a perfect segue, because I want to ask you some dating questions too. So we're kind of already on this subject. So I kind of want to dive into, like, have you ever had an experience where a guy was maybe like uber focused on you, like so focused on you, but didn't have maybe other things kind of going on in his life? And if not, like, have you observed guys like that, and kind of what's your like a perspective on it?
I have. Okay. So I think that usually when I encounter guys like that, and the type of man that you just explained, they're the ones who don't have much going for themselves, with like a lack of better terms. And so they're hyper focused on me. And so you can tell when like their entire like happiness depends on what I say or what I do, and the way that I reciprocate their gestures or whatever it is. And so that's just really unattractive, because I like a guy who's focused on himself, not egotistical, but just I don't like when they depend on me like that, you know, like I don't like when they're needy and stuff like that. I think that, like, to me personally, I think that's very unattractive, and it's a huge turnoff. But when they have their own thing going on, and when you know that you're just like an add-on, you're not everything to them, then I kind of have the incentive, and like I kind of like feel more inclined to get to know them and see what they're about and see what they're doing, and maybe be a part of their lives, because it seems more interesting than just them having no base. So yeah.
I love that. You're like affirming everything I talk about on this channel, because that's what I try to say.
I'll just be here and be like, yeah, guys, listen to Tino.
For real.
I'll be like your little cheerleader.
I need you as my hype woman or something. No, but that's true. Like, what about a guy who's focused on himself, who like has his things in order? Like, what makes that, to you at least, like what makes that really attractive? Like, what are the qualities maybe that this man possesses that you're attracted to?
Independence is definitely one of them. Independence, and it shows that he is self-disciplined, because he's created that structure and routine for himself.
Sure.
Also, I would say he is courageous for being able to go after me, and also like have his own world. Yeah.
Does that, for sure? Because that's talked about a lot here on, you know, I guess you want to call it the manosphere, but like guys in this industry, you know, I hear that a lot too. We say, like, you know, set your life up so you can invite a woman into your world that you're building together, and she can have like she can enjoy it and she can add value to what you're doing. You add value to her. So I was wondering, like, in your perspective, in your opinion, like, is it more attractive when a guy is in, like, kind of like inviting you into his world, or more attractive when you are kind of inviting a guy into like your stuff, or maybe a little bit of both?
A little bit of both, but I think that when a guy invites me into his world, I kind of like that more personally.
Yeah.
Just because I like to be with more of a leader rather than being like, "Come, let me show you my stuff." But like, obviously, both will have to happen in order for any relationship to work.
For sure.
But I would prefer to more so go to that side. Yeah.
No, it's an important thing to mention, because I think a lot of women are, and you can obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, and especially with women of just modern times, some of them I feel are, they maybe don't always see it that way. They kind of feel even maybe triggered by a guy who claims to want to be a leader, kind of take them into their journey. And I think that kind of ties into what you were saying earlier with like the way feminism has been in mainstream society. And how do you feel? I guess, what would you say to women like that have a different opinion about, well, I actually kind of want to be the one who's the leader, or maybe they think differently? Like, what would you say to that?
Well, I do think that every situation is different. I don't think that we're able to be like every single girl wants a leader, because some of them do want to be more half and half and like take on like exactly half, like literally half of everything. And I think that in those cases, like maybe they do want that, but in some cases, I think that it'd be interesting for them to try something outside of their comfort zone. And for example, maybe not lead so much of the relationship this time, or like try that and see if they like it. And I think that a lot of times when they're with a solid person, a solid man, they're able to rest more in their femininity and be less of a leader in the relationship.
Sure. Do you think women, I guess a good way to put it is like, do you think women are almost, they feel vulnerable when they have to maybe give up that leadership role? Because I know a lot of professional women, and I'm friends with a few of them, and they're very like ambitious, they're go-getters, they really are, they're doing a lot of things in life, which is amazing. But I think it's sometimes hard for them to attract a guy that they really want, like a guy who's masculine, because it's hard for them to maybe give up some of that leadership energy. And I was wondering, like, what would your take on that be? Like, have you noticed that? Have you maybe seen that in some of your friends, or, noticed that ever?
Well, there are definitely some relationships where the girl is a breadwinner. And so in those cases, I find that it's very hard for them to let go, and which obviously, like, so, right? Because they're the ones bringing in all the money, they're the ones like taking care of the family. And so in those cases, it's totally understandable. And again, like every situation is different. But I think that in some cases, like the reason why women wouldn't want to let go and be somewhat under, I don't mean under as in like they're not equally valued, but it's just like a different role that they play in the relationship, right?
Right.
The reason why is because they've been heartbroken in the past, or because other men have betrayed their trust. And I think there's a lot of those situations out there, and reasons why women wouldn't want to rest in their femininity, and they would want to keep their guard up and make sure that they're equals 100% of the time.
You bring up a really good point about like trauma, about past relationships that maybe weren't serving them, and they maybe carry that into the next person. I think men and women both, we both do this, when a guy maybe was hurt by a girl in the past, so he's going to make assumptions like, oh man, all girls want to lie, all they do is want to cheat and deceive me. And then a woman can do the same thing. They think, oh, men are trash, they're all the same, all they do is want one thing. I've heard everything in the book. So let's speak on that real quick. How important do you think it is for men and women to heal from their past traumas, and then not carry that into the next relationship?
I think it's really important to heal before you get into another relationship, because the past traumas can obviously carry along with you and impact your new relationship, which which is very unfortunate sometimes, because maybe this would be a perfect relationship for you. Like maybe
Right.
this person isn't going to betray your trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important to heal.
Mm.
And I think that not healing and rushing into new relationships is a big reason why some relationships don't work out and fail. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. Because it's like some people just they carry that trauma and they make the same mistakes that they made in the previous relationship, and they do it with this next person because they think, oh well, they're going to be just like them, or they make all these like assumptions, and then that gets them into trouble, and it prevents them from actually showing up, I think, authentically and being present with the person that you're with. So I know for me, like one of the ways that I have I guess had to heal from my past things have been just reflection. I don't think enough guys do this, where they sit alone, like literally just like I call it selected isolation. Like be comfortable being alone, like learn about the things that you're thinking about, and like gain like some awareness around it. What are some of your weaknesses? What are some of the things that you are insecure about? And then meditate around it. I think that is like a great way to at least start the healing process. I'm not a professional healer or anything, but these are just the things that, have helped me. So what things have maybe you tried in the past, or what do you think is like a good method to start that healing process?
So I definitely think that time alone is so necessary.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of people tend to not sit with their thoughts and not meditate, which is very unhealthy. Like you just go from distraction to distraction to distraction without actually taking a step back and looking into your life and spending time with your life and like yourself, and like actually hearing what you have to say to yourself and how you are feeling. And so that is not healthy at all. I was actually just thinking about this the other day, and I think about it very often because I know a lot of people around me who are very much just like jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing, and they have no idea what their own body is trying to tell them. And so that's really important for anyone trying to discover who they are and get to know themselves and hear their inner voice.
That inner voice is key, because a lot of the times, especially the men that follow me and the guys probably watching this video, we have, and I've had this too, which is why I think I attract guys like this, but we sometimes have that negative voice come up, which is, it's like the inner demon, right? Like it just tells us we're not good enough. We can't get a girl who's better than her. I'm not that kind of guy yet. So what would you say is a message to guys out there? Because I know there's some that are watching it, because they've come to me with this question, like, how do you change that inner voice to where it's empowering you instead of disempowering you?
That inner voice, I think, needs work. I don't think that like you can just wake up one day and tell your inner voice, like, make sure you empower me. Like, I think it's something that you work on over the years. You work on yourself.
Yeah.
And that inner voice gets stronger, and that inner voice becomes more positive, and your headspace becomes a more positive space. And so I think it definitely just takes work. And I think that step by step, you're going to get there. And it's all about your mindset and like making sure that your head is a healthy environment, right? Because that's where your voice comes from. So over time, work on yourself, and your head's going to be a healthier place, a happier place. Yeah.
Totally. I agree. And one of the things that I also think is important with that is environment. And you kind of touched on it too, about making sure your head's in a healthy place. How important do you think it is to have people around you too, that have that, that encouraging voice, that aren't telling you things that are negative and that are going to bring you down, but they're saying, yo, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. I help you. I support you. Like, how important is your environment when you're going through that?
I think it's really important because the people around you are going to impact your subconscious and your inner voice.
Right.
And they're going to impact your energy. And so I think it's so important to keep people around you who support you, who uphold you, who want to see you thrive, who want to see you succeed. And those are the kind of energies and people that you should keep around you, like good people. And to cut out as much negativity as you can, because Some people think that doesn't impact them and it's just going to be there, but 100% it does impact you. And as we were talking about last time, we were discussing about how our brains are constantly evolving and changing based on everything that we see, everything that we hear. And so protect your energy.
Totally. Agreed. That's something that's so freaking important. I try to tell you guys that too, is like protect yourself, have these boundaries, you know, set these things in place to where you can limit some of that time with toxic, negative people who are going to bring you down, who are going to say things that maybe mess up your mental, mess up the way that your momentum is going. So there's tangible things that I have said, but I know that there's some guys out there that are in a very interesting situation. Maybe they're living with somebody, or maybe their parents are somewhat of a negative influence on them. I can only give from my perspective. So Allison, like from your perspective, what would you say is a good method for people that maybe are in a tricky situation? They're living with somebody, or maybe they're even, some guys maybe are married to somebody who's in a more of a negative place. Like what's a good way to maybe turn that around, or just limit your time maybe with them?
Well, what I always tell people, what I always tell myself, is that you can only control what you can control, right? So as much as I say protect your energy, maybe there are things you can't control around you, and you're going to receive bad energy because that's just your life circumstance. So I think that you should control what you can control, and make sure you double down on what you can control, and whatever you can control, make sure that you have that under control, and everything else will happen as it happens. And it's unfortunate if you have to take on other people's energies and you have to put up with a lot of like bullshit right now. But again, control what you can control, and everything else just happen as it is.
I love it. That's well said. I think that's like something I'm putting on another t-shirt. Control the controllable, guys. That's all.
Control the control. And I think that oftentimes we underestimate how much is actually in our control.
Right.
People always tend to focus on what's out of their control, and they're like, okay, I can't do this because of this and this because of this. But it's like, if you actually think about it, you probably have so much more control that you're not taking control of in your current moment. And if you just look into your life a little bit and you take responsibility, I think that would be helpful for you to find out what you can control.
No, you're right, because that's important. Guys need to take that accountability, that responsibility. And I'm wondering, like, why do you think that is? Is it hard for guys to, I mean, I can speak as for myself. I think it's hard sometimes for men to look in the mirror and be like, yo, I'm failing in this area, or I could really improve here. Why do you think it's hard for people to be in that space of honesty with themselves, to just say, hey, I need to step it up? What do you think is getting in the way?
I think it's pride. I think it's ego. I think that a lot of people think that their lives are perfect the way it is, and that they don't need help, and that they don't need to help themselves. No one needs to help them. But I think that if you swallow your pride for a second and you humble yourself for a second, and you actually look into your life and you honestly want to find out how you can be better, that's when you're actually going to find the answers. But if you walk around all the time thinking that everything's fine and you 100% are self-sufficient, I think that forever you're going to live the same life and be the same lifestyle, everything's the same. But if you want change, look deeper and swallow your pride, be humble. I think humbleness is what a lot of people in this world currently are lacking. So yeah.
Humbleness is key. I would agree with that. I think that there's a fine balance between having a good sense of being humble, like not letting things go to your head, not letting your pride get in the way. But at the same time, especially, everybody needs this, but I think men especially, we have very sometimes temperament egos to where it can get too big or maybe too small. I think that there's a good balance between having just the right amount of ego, but then having obviously a side of humbleness to you, so you don't let that get to your head. Because I think obviously ego is important. If we didn't, human beings,
is.
We need it.
I think it's all about having a good balance.
Yeah.
Because if you have no ego, and you have no humbleness, like none of the extremes would work. I think it's finding that middle ground, or whatever your middle ground is personally.
Yeah. I would agree. Because people associate a lot of negative things with ego, and I've even made videos on my channel in the past saying like, oh, dude, ego's bad. You need to be an ego death. But I'm starting to realize now that I mature and grow, it's like you need a little bit of ego, because without that, you know, you're not going to push yourself. You're not going to feel, you know, proud of your accomplishments, because ego is what keeps you going. It's what you know that like separates you from, you know, let's say the average person or something. Like animals, for example, like they don't have an ego. Like a deer doesn't know it's a deer. It's just living life. You know what I mean? So human beings need a little bit of ego.
You definitely need the ego in order to be confident in
Yeah,
yourself
for sure.
and to be able to present yourself well
Hmm.
and know what you have to offer. Obviously, ego is
Right.
really important for that. But at the same time, of course, we were just talking about how you need to sit down sometimes and look into your own life and be like,
Hmm.
I need help.
Yeah. I know. I think a lot of guys, they skip that step, and they don't. It's hard for a lot of men to ask for that help and to admit that they have an issue or a problem.
Hmm.
And I know for me, that was one of the biggest things that helped change my life. Like I had to sit down because I had back surgery, had a lot of time to just reflect and a lot of time to analyze, yo, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go in life? What's important to me? And I think without that critical step, it's really hard to get that foundation in place, because if you don't know who you are, I always say this, like if you don't know who you are, it's impossible to know what you want. I think everything starts with self-awareness.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that people, if they don't know, yeah, exactly. Like if you don't know who you are, how can you know what you want? And you may
Hmm.
think that you want certain things, but it's like you don't really until you actually know yourself.
Right.
So self-awareness is so important and it's so key.
Hmm.
I will always preach that.
100%. I guess on a gauge of like, what would you say? Obviously there's like distractions, and there's like social media, there's media itself on TV and all this stuff, but what do you think is one of the biggest things that's maybe pulling a lot of guys away from that self-awareness?
I think it's distractions.
Hmm.
That's a big one. Um, Also society again. I think that the way they were brought up and the messages that they see around them keeps them from actually knowing themselves.
Hmm.
Because even if they're told certain things by like one individual about how they may be, like they're gonna be like, no, like their brains are just wired in a way, I feel like, where they're not able to see certain things in
Hmm.
themselves. Um, yeah, I think that's a big part of
Hmm.
it. But yeah.
Yeah, distractions are huge. No, I would agree with that. And it's funny because this kind of comes full circle to what we were talking about earlier, like with the environment that you're in, you know, with the people that you surround yourself with. I always have this belief that, you know, the people that you're with, like the things that you consume, media, music, books, people that you talk to, conversations, all that has a role in the way that we think about life, or just the values that we have, the beliefs that we have. Because I think that sometimes we spend so much time around this stuff and not enough time with ourselves, that we start to have like a belief or a mindset that we didn't even really know how it got there. Like it wasn't even from us, it came from somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of us. We have a lot of ideas ingrained in us from
Yeah.
TV, whatever it is, right? That
Hmm.
are not our own thoughts. And I think that a lot of our thoughts, actually, maybe I would argue like the majority of our thoughts are not from us.
For sure.
Um, yeah, like we're just, it's how we're brought up. It's who's
Hmm.
around us, where we live.
Hmm.
And so it's really important, again, going back to meditation and spending time
Yes.
with ourselves. That's why it's important to just sit down and not look at anything or listen to anyone.
Hmm.
And just be like, how do I feel today?
Hmm.
How does this make me feel? Like, what do I truly think about this? Right?
Hmm. You're right. Because I don't think enough people do that, where, you know, they maybe see a quick headline or like something that flashes on the TV, and it's like, yo, I gotta believe that. But it's like, do you really? Or are you just believing what you see because that's what everybody else is believing? Like do the research yourself. Find out what you really think about it. And I think that's, you know, we don't have to get too deep into this, but I think that's why the news capitalizes on that shit, because they know people are going to jump on something the second they throw out a story or a headline,
It's
instead
just
of
like
people looking
any,
into it.
right. It's just like any like thumbnail on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
People just
exactly.
based on whatever it is.
Hmm.
And I think it also comes down to whether or not people want to find out more, because
Right.
it is easy just to look at something and be like, I believe that. And it is how the news is always going to be, or it's how the media is going to be. But it's actually, I feel like it comes down to a lot of people's laziness, or them not being interested in finding out more or learning more or finding out the truth. Like, you know, so I think that promoting self-awareness and and like just doing your own research and free thinking is really important too.
Totally. So super true, because that's something I really want to talk about on this channel more of moving forward, is just the pursuit of the truth, and not holding back, because sometimes, like, I've even had videos where maybe I didn't speak on something enough. Maybe I wanted to, but I didn't, because I was like, well, it might rub people the wrong way, or it might come off a certain way. But I think at the end of the day, you have to just be honest, and you have to be authentic, and you have to be real with the way that you see the world, because the people that will agree with you, and well, not even completely agree with you, but the people that resonate with it, they won't have a problem listening to your message, and the ones that don't, they don't, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, like the more that you are yourself, the more you're going to attract people who are for you.
Exactly.
And the more you're going to just cut out people who are not for you, which is totally fine too, because not everyone is for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about just being the best you and being that authentically, and that way you're going to attract people who love you.
100%. Beautifully said. I think we can wrap that up in a nice little bow and probably end it there on that. That was good.
Yeah.
I like that. Because it goes back to the dating thing too. Like, when you know yourself, and when you know what you're worth, and what your interests are, what you like to do, like, you naturally attract women who are like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just being yourself, you're going to attract a girl who's interested in what you're doing too, and who supports the way that you think, and like loves that and finds that so interesting, right? But if you're constantly just chasing a certain persona, like, you're never going to really be that person. I feel like I've learned that in the past, like, whoever you're trying to be, you're never going to be them. And so you're always going to be caught in this like weird phase where you attract different people who are still not meant for you. But once you're authentically yourself, and you want to be yourself, and you're comfortable with yourself, that's when you're going to attract people who like are actually meant for you, and people that you will actually click with.
Exactly. Real quick, I want to make this point and then we'll wrap it up. But I think sometimes too, guys fall into this persona and this facade of being this person who maybe they saw on YouTube, or they saw online, or read in a book somewhere, and they do it for a little bit, and maybe that temporarily attracts a certain type of person. But eventually, like, your real self will come out, and this person will be like, whoa, you're nothing like I thought you were like a couple months ago. What happened? And it's like, you put on that facade, but it's temporary. It doesn't last long.
That, and I also think it's not healthy to try to be someone else all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more healthy for you to rest in like who you truly are, and just work on getting to know that self, and that beautiful self, and like becoming the best version of you, like glow and like radiate like authentic energy. And I think that that's also the healthiest version of yourself.
Couldn't agree more.
Healthy for you.
I agree totally. Starts with you guys. That's why I say that in every video. That's what that's what I'm talking about. Like, being authentic.
Take responsibility, because everything starts with you.
Exactly. I think that's a perfect way to end it, Allison. Let's wrap it up here. I think that was great.
That was such a good conversation.
Yeah, I love that. I think we hit a lot of different things. I think if you guys want to go back and rewatch this a couple times, because we had a lot of gems in there. It wasn't just dating focused, obviously. We talked about a lot, like self-awareness, societal pressure. We talked about just knowing yourself. I mean, a lot of things in here. Definitely go back and check it out again a few times, because there's probably some things you'll miss the first go around. So
yeah, maybe Allison, 3 times. Watch it 3 times.
Yeah, at least 3 or 4 times. 3, 4, 5 times. Share it with whoever you want. A couple shares, you'll be good. So I love it. So Allison, real quick, throw some plugs up. Where can people find you?
My Instagram is Allison Mak. ALLISON because you don't know how to spell it. And I have a YouTube channel too. I'm actually vlogging today. So
nice.
Yeah, new vlogs are coming, new content. We're going to work on ourselves together. We're going to just be the best that we can in 2022.
Love it. So I'll throw Allison's tags in the description of the video if you guys want to follow her, you want to check out her vlogs. The links will be down below, as well as my links. You know what the deal is. You know where to find me. You know my Instagram and all that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Comment down below. Subscribe. You know all that fun YouTube stuff. So we're going to wrap up here. But thank you, Allison, for joining. It was an awesome conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Definitely want to make this a regular thing on the channel, guys. So be expecting some new guests in the future. And then, yeah, we'll make 2022 a hell of a big experiment. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. All right, guys. We'll see you. Deuces.